few things left to do before winter, and getting the wood boiler ready to be burning and heating the house for us is one of those things. Each year in the fall I like to do some regular boiler maintenance to make sure the water inside's clean and the boiler's ready to go and everything's in shape to be burning for the whole winter. We haven't started it up yet because really the weather's just been beautiful for a fall in Ohio. Last week we had temperatures in the 70s, so when the temperature's not cold all day and I don't need the heat in the house all day long, I don't really fire up the boiler till I think that's going to be needed, because I don't want to have to be starting and restarting fires when they go out in the boiler. I want to light it once and let it burn all season long. So a lot of times that's near the end of October when I start burning. This year it's been a little later, so we're going to hold off as long as the weather holds up. And today it's gotten a little cooler and we're getting closer to heating season, and before it gets too cold I want to get this boiler maintenance so that it's ready to go. So we're up here on the top of the boiler. This is where we fill the boiler up with water. And you can see this old water that's in here from last year. And it's, down in here you'll see on this pipe some scale. That probably won't come off, but that's just an example of what could be in the pipes and lines and in the heat exchanger inside of the furnace. Also, this water's just got some, cloudiness and debris and stuff in there, and this cleaner helps flush all that out. So what we're using today is CF205. It's a heating system cleaner, and like I said, I got this from Alternative Heating System or Heating Supply, and it's their particular cleaner that they've come up with and that they sell. I think the price is reasonable and shipping is quick. So like I said, I'll leave a link to where you can purchase those, and also go check out his YouTube channel. So we're just going to dump in the quart of cleaner and 2 gallons of vinegar. Vinegar is just going to help get any scale off there. We're going to let it run through the pump, pushing through the system for 4 to 8 hours. Then we're going to turn the pump off and drain the system. So make sure you follow all the safety features. You don't want to be getting this in your eyes or on your hands. We're just going to empty it into our fill-up port here. Let it drain into the boiler. And then we're going to put in our 2 gallons of white vinegar, just your regular white vinegar you'd use to clean at home. Same idea as running vinegar through your coffee pot or something to get rid of the scale. getting our water turned on here to fill up the boiler. Check out that really cool barn art in the background. This is the part where I do a shameless plug for you to go check out my other video on how we made that. Alright, we're just going to make sure it's full of water here. Most of that cleaner has gone down in. Guys, if this is something you're enjoying, coming along with us so far, and something you want to see more of, make sure you click that thumbs up, go down and subscribe to our channel. I had a friend of mine say they weren't getting notifications that I was getting or uploading new videos, so if you want to get notifications, there's a little bell icon you click and it'll notify you that a new video has been uploaded. So if you want to do that, it'd help out the channel a lot and helps get our channels put in front of more people whenever they do certain searches on YouTube. So make sure you do that. Share with your friends. There's a new Facebook page out there. If you search Ohio Poplar Ridge, I'll be letting you know through Facebook too when new videos are posted. Just hope that will help people to click the link and check it out. Well, we've got the back of the boiler taken off here, just the back panel. This is the fill neck where we were just filling right up above here just a minute ago. And this is Arteko Pump that circulates the water. So it has a pickup tube that goes inside of this water jacket, and that firebox heats up this water and it pumps down through the lines into the house. And I'll show you the heat exchanger later as well. But it's pumping hot water into the house. So we're going to turn on our pump now, and we'll have to keep an eye on that water level because this will force air out of the system and the water might go down just a little bit. So we may have to add water as we go, just depending on how much has evaporated from last year. So got you guys kind of on a wide angle shot here. Hopefully you can see the controls. I'll try to give you a better idea of how this works. So while this pump's running and flushing the cleaner and through the lines, we'll be listening for air bubbles to come through in case we need to check our water level. But this box right up here is called an Aqua Stat, and it's reading the temperature of the water. It has a little probe that goes inside of this water jacket back here, the water tank, and it's measuring the temperature of the water. And when the water goes below 160 degrees, it sends a signal down to the unit to turn on the blower to kick the fire up. When the water reaches 170 degrees, it quits sending that signal and the blower turns off. The blower is right down here. The blower is right down here, and that Aqua Stat is sending a signal through the lines to this solenoid to turn on. And the solenoid just simply lifts this chain, which brings air through that blower and kicks the blower on, and then air forces down into the firebox to really get the fire going really good. Otherwise, the fire's pretty much choked down and it just sits there and smolders and stays as hot coals and embers. And that way you're not just running the fire all the time. Otherwise your water would boil and it would boil off. So if you're having trouble with these particular Hardy units, the Aqua Stat is something I've had to replace before. It's a pretty simple fix to replace that Aqua Stat there. But mine was boiling off, and that was part of my problem. Another common problem is your rope seals on the door. If they're letting too much air in, they'll get enough air to keep your fire going, and it'll boil the water off too. So we'll check that before we're ever ready to fire this up for the season. Okay, our pump is running and our water level looks good. So we're going to let this run for, like I said, between 4 and 8 hours just to really circulate that cleaner and the vinegar. It's a continuous loop, so the water is going to push inside through the heat exchanger, which I'm going to show you here in just a minute, and back into the water jacket or the water tank on this unit. And so it's just going to be continually looping that cleaner and the water together, mixing it really good, and just getting everything kind of scrubbed internally. We'll have to come back out every hour or two just to check on the water level to make sure it's good and full and that we're not running the pump dry, which I don't think we're at any risk of doing, but just to make sure, in case you have a unit that you're running, you want to make sure you don't do that. These pumps are cooled by the water itself, and it's really not good on them to be run dry. It'll burn them up. So if you're interested in anything else about the boiler, leave me a note in the comments, something you want to see, or if you have questions or comments about how it runs or how it works, or what you do on your boiler for the season. Leave those comments below. I'm interested to know what it is you guys want to see, so I'm producing content that's interesting to you. The hot water is coming from the boiler up this line and coming in the top side of the heat exchanger. This heat exchanger was added to my furnace by the original owner. This boiler was here when I got here, but the heat exchanger is the key, of course, right? This hot water is flowing through this loop, and it's just like a radiator in your car exchanges heat. It's taking heat away from your car. This water is going through a series of tubes through here before it comes back out this tube here and goes down back to the boiler, and that pump is pushing all that water, the pump we saw outside on the boiler. The reason that the hot water comes in the top side is obviously because hot air or temperature rises, and as this water is going through, the fan will kick on if the house needs heat, and it blows air across this heat exchanger to blow warm air through the ducting in the house. And as that water cools, it wants to sink, and so it's naturally helping out the pump by, as it's cooling, sinking down and going through the tubes back to the boiler itself. I replaced the lines on this boiler. The previous owner had like 5/8 inch PEX, and I've replaced it with Central Boilers foam coated and insulated 1-inch PEX, and that's made a huge difference. That the previous PEX that was in the ground was just buried in the ground without any foam or any insulation whatsoever, really. And this is completely encapsulated in foam and then inside of a hard plastic shell. These are just the PEX pieces hanging out here that you see now, but inside the ground it's completely insulated. And that's made a big difference. Before, the snow would all melt on the ground, showing that I had heat loss, and now the snow stays there just fine. I also added this temperature gauge. It tells me pressure, but there's really no pressure on the system because it's an open air system, but it also will tell me the temperature. I just bought this gauge at a local hardware store. You can see the temperature here. Obviously the water that's in there is really cold right now, just over 60 degrees Fahrenheit. But that really lets me know if, you know, in the wintertime, if I come in here, and I can easily tell what the boiler needs or what it's doing by checking that temperature gauge. If you don't have a temperature gauge on your heat exchanger inside, it's made a world of difference for me. Instead of walking out to check the firebox, I can tell if that water coming in is below 170 or 160 degrees, then I probably need to throw some wood in the firebox. It's not keeping up. Something's wrong. So if the water coming in is 160 plus, then I know I'm probably okay at the time, and that's because I know that's what that Aqua Stat is set at on the back side of that boiler. So just a little information for you guys. Hopefully you find that interesting. Alright guys, we're just out here checking on our water level, making sure that as the air was forced through the line and the system, that it didn't drop our water level down too low. The pump seems to be running fine, and our water level looks really good. So while we're out here, we're going to check the rope seals on the door. I just replaced that last season, so it should be good, but we're just going to double check it and make sure that it's not torn or ripped off in any places. As I mentioned earlier, that helps keep the outside air from coming into your firebox and overheating. So we want to make sure that's good. We'll clean out the ashtray, the pan underneath the firebox. Make sure that's good and clean. I'm sure it's full of ash from the last time we burned. And then just take a look at the firebox and make sure that it's in decent shape and that there's nothing that needs cleaned up or fixed. So that rope seal goes right around the edges of this door, and that's what meets up with the edges of the door here. And I know it's hard to see in the camera, but I'm just making sure that that rope is intact and that it's not cracked or that it's not missing pieces. When I close the door, I want to make sure there's not a lot of give. This is even more important if you have an indoor fireplace. You can stick a piece of paper or a dollar bill or something in there and close your door and make sure that it doesn't come out. That will indicate to you there's not enough room for air to go through, which is all you really need. It seems to be making a good seal, and like I said, I just put that rope in there last season, so it should be good. I am going to take the shovel and scrape off some of the creosote buildup along the walls and the edges of the firebox here and get that slightly cleaned up. Well, it's been about 6 hours. We're going to check the water level, make sure everything looks good, check on the pump, and I think we're probably ready to go ahead and drain the water out of the system. And then once we're able to drain the water out of the system, as long as it looks like it's coming through nice and clean, we're going to fill it up with fresh, clean water and add our ProTech 300 water treatment. So I'll show you that process too. So there's a little ball valve right down in here. I'm just going to hook a hose up to. That'll allow me to drain this system. And I mentioned to you earlier the boiler lines that were completely coated in foam. You can see this hard plastic here, hopefully, and then the whole system is completely coated in spray foam, which really does an amazing job at insulating these lines so that you don't have so much heat loss when it goes into the house. I don't want to be heating the ground out here and warming things up and melting snow. I want all the heat going through to that heat exchanger inside. So while our water's draining behind us, I just want to say a couple things. One is I didn't choose the Hardy outdoor wood boiler. It was on the property whenever we bought it. If I had it to do over, or if I was buying one myself, I doubt this would be the brand I would choose. There are, in my opinion, higher quality brands out there. Probably two of the top ones I would look into would be a Central boiler or maybe a Woodmaster. I've heard really good things about both of those. My experience personally has been that I've had to do a lot of work to this particular boiler. I don't know whether that's because of the years of use it had before I got here, or the way it was installed and used prior to me, or if that's just typical of the Hardys. Also, it has a much smaller water tank and water jacket on it than some of those other boilers I just mentioned. The second thing I wanted to say, other than mentioning the Hardy brand, the second thing I want to say is I'm not an expert. Most of what I've learned through YouTube and watching other people, and just trying to figure out how best to use this system and to get it ready to heat for the season. So I'm just trying to put extra content out there, especially with these Hardy outdoor wood boilers. You just don't see much on YouTube about those. So that's why I've been trying to point out different components and things that I've had to kind of learn and figure out on my own. Hopefully this will help somebody else if they're having any problems. We just finished draining the boiler. I'm actually going to start filling it up now. We're just about out of daylight. The sun's just setting over to the west. It's starting to cool down pretty good without the sun out here, but we're going to start filling up the boiler. I left the bottom port open because I want to let water run down into the tank and wash out anything that might be in the bottom. And then once I see clear water is running out of the hose, I'll close that port and we'll just let it fill up. Well, it saved you the pain of watching me fill this up for the past 20 minutes, but it's almost full. It's not quite full yet, but it's almost there. So I'm going to go ahead and add my ProTech 300. Just so you guys know, this is not some kind of paid advertisement or product endorsement. This is just stuff I've bought with my own money that works for me. I've used it before for the past several years and really like it, so just thought I would let you know what it is I'm using. This 1 gallon of ProTech 300 will treat 300 gallons of water. So I don't have quite 300 gallons in this boiler, so I'm going to do about 2/3 of it. And then I'm going to fill it the rest of the way up with water, and then we'll just keep this inside, and if we have to add any water this season, then we'll have that a little bit left to add in with it. So I think that's about all we got time for today. We're about out of light, and my wife is a teacher, and she's got parent-teacher conferences tonight, so I guess I'm on my own for dinner. So God bless our teachers. I know that none of us really would be anywhere today if it weren't for some special teachers in our life, and my wife just happens to be one of those. So I love her for that, and she really gives her heart and soul into the children that come into her life. And so if you know of a special teacher, or if your kids have some good teachers, I'd encourage you to reach out to them and just encourage them in this time of the pandemic that we're living in. They're having a hard time and struggling just because it's not a normal year for them. They're doing things different than they've ever had to do before. So this is all new to them. And most of the teachers that are out there are great, and they deserve our encouragement. God bless you all. You have a good evening.